Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to another Sunpire CCG video. I'm your host once again today, Mohammed Fatah, joined by my lovely co-host Colin Wong. Today we have our second of three OP06 set highlights for you. Today we're featuring green and yellow. To start us off today, we'll be going over the first leader of the set, which is going to be Hordy Jones. This leader is a 5k 5 health mono green leader that says activate main. You may rest this leader. Rest up to one of your opponent's Dawn cards or characters with a cost of 3 or less, and then you cannot add life cards to your hand using your effects during this turn. This leader is not very fantastic. So, a few notes about this leader. Because he rests himself as a cost, which is denoted by the bolded text over here, over here on the screen, you cannot use his effect if he is not able to rest himself, which means he is one of those leaders that cannot attack. Furthermore, because as seen with Whitebeard, for example, drawing life tends to not be as much of a downside as people think it is. So the fact that he just prevents himself from drawing an extra card potentially can also be viewed as a drawback. The leader just like unsynergizes with itself, kind of, so not the best way to start off.
I would agree. This leader is definitely below average. It has the same issues as, let's say, Vivi, Rebecca, what's the other one, Iceberg, the leaders that can never attack. Now granted, this one can attack sometimes, so do be a bit mindful of that if you're ever playing against this deck. You know, in the end game, sometimes they'll just pull their last life to enable their leader swing off of their other Fishman cards. Because like all of the Fishman cards in this deck pull their own life to do something slightly above average for what they cost, which we'll actually get to one of those cards in a bit. But yeah,
one is much better than the others.
Yeah, the actual Hordy Jones SR in this set is way better than the leader, let's just put it that way. But it's a cool deck. I would probably put it at the same level as like Captain Kuro in terms of power level, so yeah,
you can definitely expect to see it maybe topping one event, if that, like a top 32 or a top 64 maybe. The leader is alright, he has a reasonable effect, but 3 costs is not very high. It doesn't get the rest of the major blockers like Borsalino or Rebecca in the format. Next, we have a leader that I personally think is going to be very entertaining, which is green yellow Yamato. So this is a dual color 5000 power base leader that has 4 life. The leader inherently has double attack and has activate main once per turn. If your opponent has 3 or less life cards, give up to 2 of your rested Dawn to one of your characters. So it gives Dawn specifically to characters, it can't give it to itself, but the leader ability is very, very strong. Inherently having double attack is a very, very good way to tax leaders early or punish them for just taking damage too quickly. Against 4 health leaders, you connect twice and then they're at 0, you connect one more time and the game is just over at that point. It's just a very efficient leader, to put it simply, and it gets strengths from like the resting that green has and the sustain that yellow has potentially. It has a lot of synergies with itself.
I think this leader is super cheesy, and I love it. I love this leader. I mean, in our testing, we're actually having a lot of fun with it. Like you said, Mohammed, I've seen games that literally just end on turn 4, and the Yamato player didn't even play a single card out of their hand. They just went first, 1 Dawn pass. Turn 2, 3 Dawn on leader swing, 5 Dawn on leader swing, then 7 Dawn on leader swing kill you, just because you don't have enough counter. So yeah,
you didn't see a blocker, you didn't have enough counter.
Yeah.
Every John in the book. Another point for the leader is like, there's so many different styles with the deck. We've been like tinkering with them, trying to figure out which is the best, and honestly, a lot of them are just really good. I think the one style we haven't tried yet is the full Fishman build that was like one of the early iterations. It played Cammy to search cards, but Sky Island is good. It's the like tanky Fortress build is good. The Wano like control heal build is There's a lot of fun with this leader, and it's something you should definitely expect to see at some of the top tables this format.
Yeah, this leader is very powerful in the sense that, because the theory is that it only takes like half as many hits with this leader to win the game as opposed to every other leader. Like, imagine against a 4 health leader like Sakazuki, right? It would take, 5 hits to win the game against a Sakazuki. Yamato only needs 3, right? Just 2 hits with the double strike leader, and then 1 hit off of anything, especially with their give 2 rested Dawn ability onto one of your characters. Like, it's just so crazy. It's one of those things where, because it takes less hits to win the game, it also means the opponent is already obligated to start eating up more counter very early on.
Absolutely. This leader is very cool, and it is inherently very powerful. Having double attack is just a very strong keyword to just have on your leader. Your leader can just be your entire win condition some games.
Right.
And there are many synergistic cards, including Hordy Jones, the 7 mana 8k super rare from the set. He is green, he is a strike attribute, he inherently has rush, and he says on play, rest up to a total of 2 of your opponent's characters or Dawn cards. You should be able to mix and match, and then you have to add 1 card from the top of your life to your hand. This card is very, very powerful. So the fact that it can rest anything, it can rest 5 cost Sabo blocker, 4 cost Rebecca. If your opponent's trying to turtle up in like purple Luffy behind 2 queens or a queen and a kid, you can rest both of them and still like start swinging. And it doesn't even take like all of your mana at 10. This card is incredibly efficient. It's likely to be a 4 of in most green decks, and specifically in Yamato, there are very, very strong plays you can do if your opponent leaves you at 2 trying to like deny the strong yellow cards like 200 million Voltamaru. You can play Hordy Jones on 7, rest 2 of their bigger costed blockers, rip down to 1, and then Amaru rest a 3rd blocker even, or anything they have in play, and just pump something by 3. It's just a very, very strong card, this format.
This card is also very cheesy. like I talked about that odd curve with Yamato, right? Against a Sakazuki, you go Dawn up leader swing, put him to 2 life because they just don't have to counter a lot of the time. Next turn, Dawn up leader swing, put him to 0 life. They panic, they put down like their Rebeccas, their Borsalinos, their Sabas or whatever. Then you just slam down Hordy Jones, rest both their blockers, and then use Yamato's ability to give them the 2 extra Dawn, swing in for 10 rush, and then that just ends the game. It's so cheesy.
Even more than cheesy, it's just like you get this 7 mana 8k body. It's like not a convenient number to deal with either power wise or cost wise for most decks. It's real strong.
Yeah, for sure.
Going on, we have the 4 mana 6k slash Ryuma. He has on play, on KO, KO up to 1 of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 4 or less. So this card is going to be especially strong in combination with the Perona deck, resting your opponent's 4 cost or lower with the leader ability and then popping it with Ryuma, or using the leader ability to shrink their 5 down to a 4 and resting it with Ryuma as well. Also, since it's an on KO, your opponent doesn't really want to like kill it, but if they don't kill it, you keep a 6k body in play to tax them for the rest of the game. And since it's a 4 cost, it can also be played off of Moria in that deck as well. The card is going to be fairly strong in that deck. I don't know if it will be played too much outside of it, since it just does not have any counter power attached to it. But its effect makes up for the lack of counter in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a much stronger X-Drake, right? It has the same power. It doesn't have counter, but it comes at 1 cost cheaper. And then the ability is also on KO, which definitely has a lot of pros going for it as opposed to a card that was already considered to be pretty decent.
Yeah, not much else to say on the card. It's definitely something you should expect in that deck, but probably not outside of it. And for the last of the green cards, we have the 9 mana 9000 power slash Roronoa Zoro secret rare. This card has, when attacking once per turn, pay 1. You may rest that many Dawn, so 1 Dawn, set this character as active as an on attack, As activate main, pay 2 Dawn, set this character as active. So as a 3-sword style wielder, he gets to attack 3 times, very thematic. Doing so costs 3 Dawn, but this card's a very, very efficient finisher. With your extra 7 Dawn, this card can be swinging upwards of 16 or more thousand power. It's very, very good at closing out games. It's very highly costed, so it's hard for people to answer without premium shrinkers. Overall, the card is just going to be very, very difficult to deal with. It also sees some play in the green Uta deck. The deck just plays it as a late game top end, since you can play it for 9 and then still have 1 Dawn to swing with the leader and draw the film card off the top of your deck. Moving on, we have a card Colin hates. It is the 4-mana event card Reject. This card has activate main, choose one of the following 2 modes, either KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less, so Thunderbolt effect without having to rip your life for 2 extra mana, or if your opponent has 1 life card, deal 1 damage to your opponent, then you add 1 card from the top of your life to your hand, and it has trigger draw 1 card. The trigger is not what makes this card very good. The strength of this card is just guaranteeing a damage for 4. Normally for 4 Dawn you can't force through a damage late game. Usually people have blockers to prevent it, or they've saved their counter to math to live through whatever swing you're doing, but this just guarantees a damage. Even if you take a damage from it, it doesn't really matter. You're putting your opponent to 0.
Right. I'm probably going to say this with a lot of cards in this video, but yeah, I hate this card. I think this card is so cheesy. I know I've used the word cheesy a lot, which honestly describes a lot of the cards that we're reviewing today. But yeah, like this card's just so versatile. I mean, first of all, it has another avenue for removal because it does the same thing as Thunderbolt does without you having to burn the life, right? But like Muhammad said, in these endgame situations where you just need to deal that last life before attacking for lethal, this is better than a rush because this is just 4 Dawn to guarantee the hit, like quote unquote, and then the rest of your Dawn can just like be stacked on your leader and you attack for game. This card just completely wrecks the math. Like for example, if they have the 10-drop Big Mom and their Katakuri leader, usually if I have enough counter, I can beat that with the Sabo because I'll just take one of the 2 hits and then Sabo blocks the last attack.
Right, if you're at 1 life.
Exactly.
I think.
Which happens often against like a Big Mom, right?
Yeah. Like Colin was saying, this just messes up the math. They deal you that 1 damage. You are at 0 and they still have 6 Dawn to put on their leader and swing 12-12. And usually in those late game situations, 12s aren't numbers you get out.
Like I'll have board states where I'm like, okay, I have enough counter and I have the blocker, so I don't die to like a rush character like the 7-drop Enel, right? But then they just reject me and then they just put the rest of their Dawn on like the remaining character or their leader and then just go like 12-12, something like that, and I'm just instantly dead. Yeah, I hate this card.
Card coming up.
It's really
I
good.
was gonna
It's
say
really
that
good.
about a lot of yellow cards. Just you wait.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, oh Nami, Colin loves this art and hates this card.
Like, yeah, I personally love this card because I play with it a lot. I'm usually on the fun side of it where I get to put it on my Yamato to go Double Strike Banish. But yeah, anyways, it's Onami is a Straw Hat. On play, one of your leader characters gains Banish for the turn. And then it has this busted trigger effect where it just KOs a 5-drop or lower, just like
has the
Thunderbolt.
T-Bolt trigger,
yeah,
right?
it's the same as Thunderbolt.
So
Yeah.
it's important to note is a 3k power stat line in combination with the Yamato leader. Giving this 2 Dawn for free with your Yamato leader means that it taxes a card off 5k leaders. This card is just very, very efficient.
Yeah.
And the Yamato leader, because this card exists, swinging like 6 early or even swinging 8 with your leader if your opponent chooses to counter out of it and like give you 2/2Ks, on the following turn you can play the Onami and swing 8 double attack Banish, and most decks that give you 2/2Ks on the first turn do not have 2 more 2Ks to give you on the next turn. So that just, you basically taxed 4 cards instead of just 2. The card is very powerful and it's definitely something that we'll be seeing play in a lot of yellow decks. Even Enel has been running it because the trigger effect is so strong even.
Right. Yeah, I mean this card's just generically very good. It's like the best yellow card to beat another yellow deck. Funny enough.
Yeah, just being able to deny their triggers is very powerful as well. I'd expect to see some Enel lists switching to a much more aggressive style with crackers in it, giving Cracker double attack by giving him the Dawn, and then just using Onami to give him Banish as well, and just use that as a style of combating like the yellow mirrors to gain that extra edge in the upcoming format.
Yeah, for sure.
Moving on, we have Kikunojo. This is a 4-mana 6k slash character with the Land of Wano and Akazaya 9 tags. It has on KO, if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, add 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life cards. And trigger, if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, play this card. So this is very, very efficient, especially as we're going to see with a lot of these yellow Land of Wano cards in the Yamato deck, where your leader turns on most of their trigger conditions and their strong effects once it's connected one time. It's just a very strong body your opponent doesn't really want to deal with normally. If they KO it, you gain advantage by gaining a life. It comes out of your life for free. It taxes a 2k if not more every time it swings. The card's just very, very efficient and going to likely see play, especially in the Yamato deck and potentially even the Enel deck.
This card is also very cheesy. I mean, like, the 3 life threshold for both its trigger effect and for the healing effect on KO, like, yes, the opponent technically has some agency over how much life they can, what life they can stay at, but in the grand scheme of things, that's just like the illusion of choice, right? It's so hard, especially for a 4 health leader like Sakazuki or Red Purple Law, to stay at 4 life. Yeah, this card's really strong.
Yeah. Especially in a format like Colin said, where 4 health leaders are going to be the norm, like Enel, like Sakazuki, like even Red Purple Law with some of the upcoming purple cards we'll be showcasing later. Even without playing the Yamato leader, just connecting one time with anything will turn on these abilities. But we also have another pace of the Land of Wano package in the set, the 2-mana 2k counter 0 power Kozuki Hiyori. This has on play, you may add 1 card from the top or bottom of your life to your hand, then add 1 card from your hand to the top of your life cards. It is a 2k that just lets you stack what is on top of your life to guarantee the next upcoming trigger, and you put it in face down so you know what it is but your opponent doesn't. They're going to have to play around it. They're going to have to guess what you think you need at that moment and try to best beat it. And yeah, you lose the 2k putting it on the board, but you draw a life to like cycle a bit, so it like helps unbreak your hand as well.
Yeah, this is just a generically very good 2k counter for the yellow decks, and actually synergizes extremely well with the next card we're about to get into.
Comboing with this card, like Colin was mentioning about, is the 5-mana 6k Kozuki Momonosuke. He is a Wisdom type. He has the Land of Wano and Kozuki clan tags. He's a blocker, and he has on play, add 1 of your Land of Wano type characters other than Kozuki Momonosuke to the top or bottom of the owner's life cards face up. The card's very, very strong. In tandem with the Hiyori we just previously showed you, you can just rip whichever life you want, put whatever trigger you want on the top of your life, then play this 5/6 blocker, and then put the Hiyori at the bottom of your life to guarantee you're getting a 2k at the end of the game. He can just chump block 5k leader swings or 5k swings in general, and he just gets to swing 6 and just tax 2ks if you want him to as well. Yeah. He cannot put himself, which is something that Katakuri, the secret rare Katakuri, can do, but for 3 less mana you can put any other creature or Land of Wano creature. Notably, Onami is not a Land of Wano creature, it's a Straw Hat. Thankfully, that would have been very strong, but they had the foresight not to do that. And you also, specifically in the Yamato deck, cannot use your Momonosuke Searcher, the green 1-drop from set 1, and put him into your life, since he's still named Kozuki Momonosuke. Regardless, the card is very efficient, and it's seeing much, much more play now, in a more control style of the green-yellow Land of Wano deck.
Yeah, I even see some NL decks take advantage of like this new Land of Wano package too, because I believe it becomes the cheapest way to actually heal yourself, right?
It becomes tied with stay or life from the star deck, but you have full autonomy over the ability to heal.
Right.
Stay or life, your opponent can choose to just trash a life.
Right, the 7-drop Big Mom.
And
right.
this establishes a body. And anything that establishes a body and does something is usually very good in this game.
Yeah.
So it lets you play much more aggressively with the NL playstyle, letting you more safely rip that life without having to counter, and then still be able to go on 5, the turn you normally can't expect to get a life, to put that 2k into your life and heal up anyways.
Right. Yeah. And it's a blocker. Like it's a 5-drop blocker, which like unironically is actually like a pretty good breakpoint considering things like Amaru can't rest this card. Right. So it's just a pretty good static card.
It is a very efficient card, and we also have one more card for the Sky Island side of things, which is You're the One Who Should Disappear. It is a 0 mana event card that says counter. You may trash one card from your hand. Up to one of your layer characters gets +3k. As trigger, if you have 0 life cards, you may add up to one card from the top of your deck to the top of your life cards, then trash one card from your hand. So it basically gives the NL leader effect as a trigger as long as this is the last card in your life. This card is good for the yellow decks. They get to play a lot more chunky cards with no counter that they want to play, because this card can turn them into counter, and especially with the Kozuki Hiyori that we showcased earlier, it lets you just stack this into your life. Like if you're at exactly 1, you can rip the life, put this in, and now you're basically guaranteed to be at 2. It's very, very strong. It's like dual modal in that sense. It's a very efficient card. If you hit it in your life or if you have it in your hand, it just lets you play more recklessly.
This might be the strongest, like context wise, this actually might be the strongest 0 for 3 event counters in the game now, just for that trigger effect. I keep using the word cheesy, but it really is, right? Like it's just, you have that NL sort of hero ability if it's your last trigger, which is pretty frustrating to deal with if you're on the other side of the table for that.
You also have the ability to control it. Like yellow has a lot of life manipulation now, so there's like, if you see this, you can move it to the bottom of your life, and unlike the other 0 mana 3ks like Bad Manners Kick Course, which shrinks something by 3,000, if I have 10 Dawn and you shrunk something by 3,000, realistically I'd pump it by 10 and it's 7,000 bigger. But this guarantees, this card blocks for infinite counter if it's in your life, right? Because 1 life can be like any amount of counter. Your opponent can't force that sometimes, and this card is just going to be very
it's also perfect for some of the existing like archetypes, right? Like Big Mom Pirates has a bunch of non-counter cards, like your Parasparrows, your 7-drop Big Mom, your 10-drop Big Mom, your 8-drop Katakuri,
7-drop Enel in the list that play it.
Yep, that too.
4/6 Katakuri in the list that are trying to be more aggressive.
Yeah.
Like, as much counter as that deck has, it has an equal amount of non-counters. Similar to the Enel deck. Just, even being able to just, like, have it for the option is just very, very strong.
Right. But, yeah. So I believe that is the last of the yellow cards and green cards that we are going over for this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and Mojave, if you would like to do one of your special
be
endings.
Sure to like, subscribe, hit that chime bell for some notifications. If you stay to the end of the video, like I'm sure you always do, please be sure to comment who has the most sleek eyebrows today.
Wow. All right, thanks so much, guys.
Anyways, thanks guys, take it easy, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
See you next time.